Well, welcome to the Undressed Podcast, today here at Mostly in Canggu. I'm very excited to have you all here. I know we have some wildcards. I know we have some opinions that are going quite in the opposite direction, so I'm super excited to explore where this is going to go. Why don't we start this way? We're just going to go around. Everyone just share their name and whatever you guys would like to share, with the rest of us. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper with the topic itself.
Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Eva Jacobi and living here in Ubud in Bali. And I work primarily with women in the realm of hormonal health and libido and also chronic disease. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm Mike. I live here in Bali since 1.5 years. And I'm a fitness and health coach with a holistic approach. So I help men and women who are quite busy, who are mentally overstressed, actually to be able to calm down their nervous system, to get in a better overall health and well-being state.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Tsa. I live here in Bali for about a year now. I came here to be a full-time artist, so I make music, I DJ, also organize creative artistic events for people to express their gifts and talents, and just to have a good time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janelle. I am from the US, originally living here in Bali for 3 years. I am a sexual health nurse practitioner working in clinics in New York and in international development in Africa. And now I'm working as a women's health coach as well and a shibari artist. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm Nico. I used to be a professional fighter, but now I work as a psychologist, specialized in helping people how to live with full intensity, live a full contact life, to embrace it all.
Hi, my name is Nafisa. You can call me Nafi. I have my own tech startup, which is called I Self Coach, telling people you can coach yourself and heal yourself from within. And besides that, I also help entrepreneurs to help their personal growth.
Awesome. A lot of coaches here today. Like I said, the first time we've done
Not
this.
a coach.
It's really important that we explore and have very open, raw, honest conversations here and step away from this superficial coaching bullshit, blah blah, trying to be politically correct, thinking more about like what other people would think about that rather than exploring your own opinions. So the topic for today is: do you think it's important to disclose your sexual history to your partner? And would you like to know that about your partner too? Who's on the yes side? Who's on the no side?
Yes.
I'm a yes too.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it's a soft no, but yeah.
It's a soft no. You're also more on the no? Okay. Wait, wasn't there another woman who said who was more on the no? You just changed your mind?
I'm yes, but a soft yes, but I'm in the middle. I can
Okay,
go to the
on.
no if we need half and half.
Why a yes and a no for you?
I think it's contextual and it depends on like what are we talking about in terms of sexual history. I think like we need to share with our partners like what's important for them to know for their own health and well-being and their safety, their sense of safety and connection to us, but not things, maybe there's some things that they don't need to know, for example.
So what is it that you would not want to share?
What would I not want to know?
I guess like things from maybe my like past, like further from my past that don't feel relevant to the present moment. I don't know. Let me think about that more.
Okay.
I think it is relevant. Depending of your view on intimacy. For me, intimacy means I want to know the full person. That means I want to know the past. And I'm also a little bit of kinky. I would like to know all the details that worked really well. So that's a little extra thing. But to me, I really believe that to really get to know somebody, I personally would like to know how they grew, and and to me, but that is my personal vision on what intimacy is for me. I would love to really know them too for me. But I know I've noticed in the past that it's sometimes very hard for people to hear, oh, I had this beautiful tantric connection with a woman, we really slept for 5 hours together. And I'm like, yeah, and Mina, yeah, but we're not there yet. And so I noticed that when you talk about the past, very often it gets reflected as almost as a critique on the present moment. And pull us away of the present moment. That's something that I think you were pointing to. If you talk about the past, sometimes it can help us to get deeper in the present, but very often it will get us away from the present moment.
Why do you think that is? Because of the threat?
Well, yeah, like I think a lot of women, when they're really honest, and a lot of men too, by the way, a lot of people are very insecure when it comes to that part of intimacy.
Well, I also feel like there's a different way of how women and men brain work. Like female, we visualize way more in general. Like I'm generalizing a lot right now, but we visualize a lot, while men do that less, right? So I'm curious. I feel like I'm a yes, but I'm like in the middle right there. Do you visualize like if is that the point?
Yeah.
That's why I want to know.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I do visualize.
I find it quite interesting to ask women these questions because you can see how comfortable they are, one, in these somewhat more challenging conversations, two, how comfortable are with the choices they have made in the past and how much they can own that piece of themselves. And you can see if someone like kind of moves away from that more and like is almost like trying to hide, and then you're going back into this like, I want to see all of her. So being a little bit more explicit about these things actually gives me so many more details, not just about her past, but where is she here in the present moment with everything that happened in the past.
Yeah.
While she's talking about it, though, she's also visualizing and revisiting it.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay. I'm curious about
Yeah.
your brain now too. Like, how do you think? That's okay for you. Okay.
I'm with Nico though, because I also want that depth and that level of intimacy where the space, it's like, who are you? Where did you come from? And like, okay, we're together now, but where did you come from? And what's made you you? So that we are able to connect on the level we're able to connect on now. And all of it all matters. It all contributes. And so I just think from a level of intimacy and depth, that's why I'm a big yes.
How comfortable are you though if he just gives you everything in terms of the details? Because you kind of asked for it.
Yeah.
Like how challenging or how easy it is for you to receive that?
I'm totally open to receiving it, and I like the conversation. Yes, are there moments where I'm like, whoa, like physically, I'm like, okay, that was a lot, and I actually want to know because I like to hear it. I like to see how they're kind of moving through it, how they're expressing it, how it impacted them, and that they're also comfortable sharing that. So yeah, it can be a lot to receive, but there's so much beauty that comes from it, because then it's also a space for me to open as well and not feel safe to open, and really go there.
Mike, you were a hard no.
The hard no is not that I'm saying it's not welcome. That's something that I have to clarify. It's just something. If it is something that feels obligatory, we're missing the point, because it comes to okay, I feel that I have to do it, but it's totally welcome if it naturally happens that I ask a question to my partner or a woman, and it gets and it's in an exchange, then it's totally fine. I'm open to share. I'm open to receive, even when it's uncomfortable. But it's and I'm a huge fan of communication, of openness, but I don't see the details as relevant in a present relationship to build on that. So we can have an open conversation. We can talk about that, But if you don't want to share, it's also okay. So it's not an obligation. That what I mean by that. So it's not 100% no of I don't want to hear anything about your sexual past, and I don't want to share what I've experienced. It's more if it naturally happens, okay. If not, then not.
So you don't feel like it will influence your relationship in the now, indifferent of sharing or not sharing the past?
I don't think so. I mean, it's so in terms of sexuality, I think it's anyways in conversation. What are your needs? What do you like? What do you dislike? Then exploring, and by exploration, getting also to know the needs. Like, hey, that's maybe, or communication of boundaries. So this is something where I feel like we're building on top of the foundation that we want to create with each other. And I don't have to know any details about what happened in the past. Like I said, we can talk about that, but it's not as relevant as it is something that has to be foundational there for a happy relationship.
I totally agree with you, Mike, on this one. I have the same kind of feeling. I don't see a need to dive into someone's history and dig through everything. Like, we change so much every day. It's like a new person. So, you know, meeting a partner and wanting to learn more about them, I think there's other ways to learn more about them. And in terms like how their past has been molded that brought them into the person they are now. And even with like sexual histories, I don't think I need to know every single detail unless it's going to impact me like on the physical level. Maybe, you know, there's something I need to know that's also like impacting the sexual kind of relationship that we are having. Then that's something I would be really open to have that open conversation. But having this like requirements, I don't think anyone should be required to share anything in a partnership unless they feel like they want to share that and they want to tell you something about their previous history. And that's why it's a soft no, right? Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So one thing. So that's one side of the story. I don't think it's necessary for me to share all of these things, you know, because it's my past, it's very personal and whatnot. However, if your partner asks you for it, now we're in a situation it's like, well, I don't really want to share this because for me it doesn't really make a big difference and I don't see the importance and significance of it. But then your partner is like, no, I really want to know. Like, how do we handle that all of a sudden, you know?
Well, that's gonna kind of raise a question in me, like, why is my partner really needs to know a sexual aspect of my past life? Like, is he feeling insecure about something? You know, so that's going to be something that's going to raise actually a question
because
in my
he wants
head.
to get to know you on deeper levels and understand who you are and how you get to this point where you're at right now.
But what is he going to gain from that? Like, what he's
way
going
more
to...
understanding of who you are.
Absolutely.
Rather than just dealing, because at the end
But
of the
she
day,
is now today who she is. What?
yeah, but like there's, you know,
have
like
patterns.
you'll also look into, for example, the way how we were raised. Like, what kind of like childhood do we have? What is our relationship that we have with our parents? Like, all of these different things we put into consideration as well. Why do we not want to talk about such a sacred, very intimate space that people choose to go in or not to go in? You know, why do we want to put this taboo on that topic, for example?
I don't think per se you need to put it as a taboo, right? It's more choosing to... Well, this is a part where I'm a little bit doubting, because you were saying what is relative. And I go, yeah, but what is relative to you might not be relative to me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that I get. The other part, though, still, I feel like that's a very valid question. Like, why would you want to know every bits and pieces? I don't have the answer, but I would be curious, because I am showing up today as who I am. And you can get to know me as a person deeply by connecting with me, right? Because there's no connection with the past. The connection is here right now as we are connected together.
I think intimacy also like evolve. It opens like we open like a flower, right? And it's like it's not just sexuality. It's like all of our past, like traumas from the past, like your childhood, whatever. Like this isn't something that's going to come up like on your first or second or third date before you have sex. When you have like this conversation about what's presently relevant for the connection, like these are things that are going to come out slowly, like over time as your intimacy develops, and they're not things that should be forced. Like, okay, like tell me everything about your past right now. It's like, I mean, no, like I don't feel safe for that, right? So like once we feel we've established like a safety and a trust and like a building intimacy, then like we reveal more and more of ourselves, not only our sexuality, but like all aspects of ourselves. So I think it happens naturally, but over time. So that's why I'm a soft no, because I'm like, I don't feel this should be like required, like to be revealed. Like it should be revealed when it feels safe and natural to reveal.
I'm gonna ask a question to the ladies.
There you go.
What about the men that do not count?
Oh gosh.
A man that does not count. Partners.
Like
Men
the
that do
amount
not
of
count.
like
number of
women you
women?
slept with.
So very often, when I was a bit younger, I was a bit wild. And then if men would ask like how many women you slept with, how many men you slept with to a woman, they would never mention me because I didn't count. I was just there for fun. And so I have the feeling, I might be wrong, that because there's a double standard of wild sexuality that's more carnal, the more carnal part of it, that many women, when they go into that, they don't feel they can disclose this to their partner. That yes, they can go for a man for sure during ovulation, like just to get fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. Do you think that's really true, that there's like a part of that more carnal, feminine, sexual, unsatiable, beautiful core that many women have, that is felt for many women as that's private, that's mine. I'm gonna not share this with my partner, that part of myself, the naughty part, the inner holy slut part.
The inner holy slut.
Ladies.
It's a great question. Wow. Okay. I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I think if I would have heard that question several years ago, I would have felt, yeah, like that is mine. I don't want to share that. I don't want, you don't get to know some of the dark parts, the shadows. Now it's like, it's such a big part of me. And I'm not really interested in hiding that anymore. And that's partly in my evolution. But like, you bring up numbers. I stopped counting. I have no idea what number I'm at, right? No idea. And so I can't expect it. I also don't feel like I can expect a man to count, especially, let's be real, the world that we live in. Like, we're all in Bali. We're all in, like, it's a certain world we're living in. Stopped counting a long time ago. And then to say that there's no parts that are naughty, that's not real either. That's not real. So I think there's an element of sacredness that I would want to bring to the partnership or to my partner within that. But I don't know, it's also part of being just an embodied woman in my
The other ladies?
I wouldn't mind. No. I feel maybe depends also with what our pasts have been, right? So I feel I've had my one night stands, but I've always had very intentional sex. The only time that I regretted it was once, that was from a bad space. And that was the only time in my life. So I feel like I'm blessed in that regard. So I don't feel I want to hide any of it, even those one nights. I'm like, yeah, they were epic. They were quite awesome. I got pleasure from it, and everyone can know. That's okay, especially my partner. I think it again depends on your background, but also how comfortable maybe you are in your skin. I feel like maybe that's what you were saying too. Like maybe a few years ago we would have been less, but especially living in Bali, we're so much more expressive and connected to our whole being.
Well, I'm a shibari artist, so I love the darkness. I have an Instagram of myself naked being tied up and tying people up, so it's not a secret for me or for my partner or for anyone in the world for that matter. I love the wild side. I love embodying that side. I don't feel ashamed about it. I do feel kind of like a crunchiness when I hear the question of like, what's your number? Like, to me, it's kind of like, what is your intention behind that question? Like, it seems that question seems judgmental. Like, what if my number's too high? I'm a slut, or it's too low? I'm a virgin. And like I don't, like, what's the point of that question?
I can give you a couple of reasons for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, so there are some statistics out there, and don't count me on the exact numbers. But for example, if a woman has like 5 or less sexual partners, if she's in marriage, there's an 80% rate of staying in that marriage. If she has 10 plus, it drops down to 40%. If it's like 20 plus, it's down at like 23% or something. So as a man, for example, if you look at the mother of your child as like, the wife that you want to have for your family, those are things that you, just looking at statistics, not like very subjective points of views and whatnot, you could say like, that's a really important argument that I can look at in order to make choices like who is the right partner for me.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. But then I also understand the other way around, like when you look at numbers and high body counts and all that stuff, then, in society, when women have a high body count, they're pretty much shamed as being a slut.
Yes.
Right.
And obviously that's we don't want that either, like that whole shaming part of it. But if you just look at these statistics and based on what the man is really looking for in his life, that's a really valid question to ask all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I think it also begs the question, like, is staying in a marriage the end goal? Because maybe someone with less than 5 partners stayed in that marriage because, like, they're scared because they've never been with other people. But someone who's been with 20 people, like, if the marriage isn't working for them, they're going to end it because they're, like, a more self-actualized being and wanting joy and fulfillment for themselves instead of just the goal of marriage. So,
Well, but the question might be: is the goal of marriage or the goal of a happy marriage?
yeah.
That's the mediator,
So that was just one of those things that I wanted to throw in. Why that all of a sudden this question can become a valid question to ask. But what do you?
I know first. So she.
Yeah, so what's your to this whole what did you call it? Sacred whole slut?
sacred inner
Holy.
slut.
Holy slut.
I
Sorry.
wonder what part of it is the making the slut holy, but
Well,
It's holy now.
because we're in Bali. Okay, I'll take that. I have there is no part of me that is ashamed to share that. Okay, yeah, I've been times in my life where I kind of taken this masculine, numb kind of position where I just in for the fun and for the experience.
Why do you say masculine numb?
Why? Well, masculine
That's very
numb.
judgy in itself.
Well, because I agree with you.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Thanks for bringing it up. I think it's just because how I see myself in that part of the life where I was embodying a lot of masculinity versus femininity, and I was more of going after it. And I think that's just a natural masculine part. So maybe it wasn't the right expression in terms of why I was a hunter, in that way.
yeah, I absolutely disagree completely. I think if a woman is really in part with that very primal part of herself, no man can stop a woman's sexual power and drive. Like when a woman wants it, she wants it and she will get it. In a different way than many men. But I think in our society, it's not allowed. But from my experience, when a woman start to turn up and start to get warm and start to get wants to get fucked, wants to get taken, wants to get ravished, no man can fucking handle that. You have to call your friends. Almost, unless you take long time like you. it's and that's a part of me of the feminine that is so beautiful and it's so judged, and I see it from women to women even more actually. Like it's almost like when in some African tribes where they are still doing the genital mutilation, it's very often the women that keep it standing the protocol. It's really interesting.
That's because of fear of their tribe that is run by men.
I don't know.
I do know.
I think it has to do with trauma and with, you know, like then having to normalize this in your brain. I don't think it's necessarily the fear of men.
Well, it's not judged by all women because we're 4 women and we all said that we're not judging this in ourselves and one another. So
Yeah, it's a very small sample size
Yeah,
that we
we're
have
a
here,
very
obviously,
unique
right?
sample
But if
size.
you generalize it a little bit further out into society,
yeah.
you know, so looking at this bigger picture, Steve, definitely something we can talk about. But you had something to say, Mike.
I wanted to ask you because you said the numbers of people that that you slept with before has a lot to do with the rate of percentage if you're gonna stay in your marriage or not.
Correct.
But so would that for you be a significant point to say in the first dates? Oh, but actually, how many numbers did you have? And if she would say more than 5, you'd be like, not the 80% rate of marriage. So I don't want to go deeper.
I mean, look, I'm different because I don't want to get married. So, which is a whole nother topic. So that wouldn't be like, I wouldn't have that question. I understand that question. I think it's a very valid question. It's a whole different conversation when to bring that up and have these conversations, right? But I don't think it's a bad thing. And, you know, that women feel judged or it's very judgy, would you share it? If a man would ask that, it's like, I just gave another viewpoint of like, well, actually there is a common sense behind it at the same time. And I also understand why you do feel judged, right? Which goes back into the whole blaming and shaming of women, like owning their sexuality and whatnot. So there's just like a lot of different things to consider.
But at the same time, for me, it's just something, if the numbers are, and I don't want to judge anyone, but it's just the numbers of people who have been asked, is it I mean, you can have healed and unhealed sexual male and female energy.
Correct.
So if the numbers that they were asking for, the people were actually very traumatized people, never have done some inner work, and they try to give an example on that, I in my opinion, it's not valid, because if you did a lot of inner work, if you know yourself, if you know what you want and what you don't want, then is it important that if I slept with 40 people or more, that my past, which was driven by a lot of traumas that I didn't heal in that time of my life, is it still something that is valid now, where I can say, hey, I've done a lot of inner work and I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know my past, but it's just something that I don't want to be driven by now.
Yeah, no, I hear that point totally, and it's a valid point too. I think, you know, you kind of we can't make the exception the rule. If you look at the world in its totality, there's a lot of men and women who haven't really done that self-work and like really going into these traumas or, you know, all these different things. So as a man to ask this question, I think it's still valid. Now, does it mean that someone can heal these traumas and like really step into a new paradigm? Absolutely, yes. Right? So I don't think one discounts the other necessarily. I think the other piece is, if you had a bunch of, this is how I look at it too. If I'm a man and there's a woman who had like, let's say 70 partners, how women generally speaking connect intimately and sexually is very emotional. There's a lot of emotions involved. There's like a very open heart involved. That means she had sex with like 70 different men. There's a lot of heartbreaks involved as well, to a certain degree. So that comes with trauma. Big or small, you can ask that, right? Okay, you're wild, like a holy slut, maybe not so much because she just owns it. But generally speaking, if women go into this very sacred, intimate, beautiful container with a man, usually there's more involved than just primal sex, right?
Why would you assume there's heartbreak though?
Yeah.
Because I said the way how men and women intimately connect is just very different.
I mean, they can still connect and not be heartbroken after.
Absolutely. That I'm not discounting that. I agree. That can happen. But generally speaking, Like, don't
Definitely. I think
about-
we're more emotionally involved when we are having sex.
So
for sure.
and now you're in a like a romance for like a few months, and it could potentially go somewhere. But the dude at the end of the day, he just wants to fuck you and wants to have a good time for a few months and until the next lady. There is a certain degree of heartbreak involved. That doesn't mean there's like massive trauma that comes out of it, but there is a certain degree of trauma and heartbreak and like going through these different emotions of sadness and grief and whatever involved, way more than it is for men.
So would
if
you
I-
want to know that then?
I do want
Would
to
you
know
want
that.
to know that?
Like
So-
if I had a lover and I had a lover and she was like 60, 70 partners and whatnot, for me, what that basically means, I mean, one, I'm not looking for marriage, but then at the same time, that means like, that's not wifey material for me in some regards, you know?
I think that's why it's so important to focus on the present more than the past, because like what you just shared, for example, like, I mean, when you're going to connect with someone, like speaking about what do you want in the present, like, do you just want to have sex casually, or do you want to have romance and relationship? And like knowing that and being on the same page will prevent this heartbreak from happening. But if you don't get on the same page about
I
that,
disagree.
then
Because
have
she
heartbreak.
wanted to have very likely 60, 70 times of that romance and partnership too, and it didn't come to that place. So you could argue, well, how much has she really evaluated her partners, her sexual partners, to go to that intimate space in a proper way, right? So the actions that we take, they cause consequences. Now you can deny that, and you're like, oh, it doesn't really matter so much because now I'm in a different state, in a different emotional like situation and whatnot. But for someone, a very rational, logical human being who looks at this like, well, okay, there's a bunch of actions that might not be really in alignment with the type of principles and values that I want to apply in my personal romantic relationship.
But the person who you are engaging with now could be a completely different person
Could be.
from what they were when they were having those 70 partners.
Yeah, could
and
be.
also on the other side that you're talking, you know, that woman kind of is more emotionally engaged when they do have a sexual relationship with someone. But I would also disagree with that. A lot of women, especially like now, and also speaking from my own past, because of the trauma, is numb themselves. So a lot of times the sexual intercourse can actually be very non-emotional and can be actually just like receiving pleasure and then not
Active
being involved.
distraction.
Yeah,
Mutual
distraction.
And again,
masturbation.
same thing. Do I want this
Yeah.
to be the mother of my child?
But then
You
that
know?
person could be completely different at this point of time,
Could
you
be.
know?
Could be.
So this is where it comes back why it's a no for me, because once you start sharing those things, it makes your partner to make certain judgments about you as you are in the present, which are just judgments. They're not the truth.
Those are like, you can
I
look
love
at
that.
you can look at those adjustments, and it's valid. You know, I'm really not trying to like disprove anyone here. I just think actions and actions that we have taken in the past, they come with reactions. They come with consequences. Now I can own them, or I can like hide them and shy away from them because I don't want to be judged by someone else. So then that's the point of me is like, well, wait a second. Who are you really if you take such a kind of important piece? For me, for example, very important piece, you don't share that with me, but it is important to me. You know, then how much of an authentic, honest, raw relationship do we really have? If these things that you already feel like, oh, he could judge me for that, so I'm not going to tell him that. Where's the line?
I
Does
guess
it
the
end
point
only
again
there, or
is what is the intention of asking?
yeah,
I feel this is again because what you said, a logical and person would think, and this is exactly why I was a little bit doubting as well, because we're connecting in the here and now. I'm connected with you, and we take that connection out of, we take that away and start thinking analytical and logical research. This is a number. Like when I hear that, like if you look into what research, how biased that is, it's ridiculous how biased research is. So it's almost impossible to believe any kind of research because majority of them are biased. So this brings me back to, okay, why would we want to discuss this? Is this really to get to know each other better in a level of intimacy so we can explore more and evolve? Or is it really to know are you wifey material? Are you husband material or not? I don't know. I feel like for me, that will be a judgment because either
And it
way,
is a judgment. I agree.
either way, you
Yeah,
will
yeah.
judge because
Yeah.
you will create this scenario in your head. This is why I said, like, do you visualize? I don't know if you guys also visualize or not, but I would visualize, and I would still visualize it after we had the talk. It doesn't end there.
So how do you judge for the ladies to go the other way around? How do you judge what's important to you in a man to be husband material, for example?
I feel that's the thing. We don't do, I mean, I don't feel
No,
like
you do. Let's be honest.
Give us the list.
then I need to
Give us the list.
I
mean,
feel
there's a
that I
list,
want
like,
someone
obviously.
for sure who's like genuine and honest
Yeah.
and open. I feel like someone who is more sexually experienced is good. Like that's
Yeah.
a good thing for me. Like because they've probably they've had heartbreaks, they've made mistakes, but they've like learned from them and they've grown and like
And they're better lover.
they're a better lover for it. They're a better person for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
So who wants to have kids here? 1, 2, 3, maybe not.
Maybe.
Okay. So for the father of your child, still to the ladies, and please correct me. What's important to you to become like father of your child type material? There's like, okay, yeah, he fits into this bracket. Here are like some categories that are kind of important. He needs to tick those boxes.
Yeah. I mean, presence, being able to show up in the great moments, but also being able to show up in the really difficult moments
Yeah.
where it's not just anger and walking away but being there and being emotional, but also being able to be present. Because that, for me, is a sense of safety. It's a sense of, okay, he wants to be here. He's not just going to run away. So that's probably, and then the ability to communicate, right? Like have your emotions, be upset, be happy, be sad, be all of these things, but be able to communicate and stay in the communication as long as it's needed.
And anything that's necessary can be communicated.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Okay, go on. I have a thought about that in a second.
Okay.
Okay, so I really feel like for me, what is most important is that person stay like coming from a true self.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you come from your true self and you have that awareness, you come also from a place of love. And communication for me is 100% important. And if it's to be a hobby material, I need them to provide.
Yeah.
For me, that's definitely
Fair
a
enough.
judge. Maybe I feel like connection is super important. Is like the most important part. That there's like a deep connection. But if I want to like spend the rest of my life or whatever X amount of life with you, then I'm not the only one that is providing.
Yeah.
And to add to that, it's like he wants to. It's his desire. It's not just that he feels like
Obligated.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Tsar?
I think for me, it's important whether the man that I see as a future husband, whatever the father of my child would be, whether his values match my values.
Yeah.
And for everyone, it could be different. So, and it's also like this things I would look at is like how he's treating people. What is the compassion level to others? Because that's like the values that are going to be imprinted on the child. And like, would I want that? Then also, what is his relationship to the material world, to the money? Like, where does he stand as a man in this world? Does he has a purpose in this life? Is he driven by something? Is he generous? Does he like take care of people? So like these are all kind of things, and there's probably more, right? But it's just seeing that in a partner and being like, yeah, that feels good in my body. Like I can see him as a father. Yeah.
I guess I already said a little bit, and I resonate with what all of you women have said too. Just like what's really coming through for me is like I would want a husband or a father of my child that's like really secure in himself. So he's not like looking to me or looking to having a child or a family or looking to sex as like something that's going to complete him, but he's already like complete in himself. And then we just meet together and like we're just like two little partners on this path, like expanding and sharing and playing. And yeah. And I could say more, but that's just really what's really resonant for me right now as someone who's like really just secure and at peace and grounded and stable inside of themselves.
Cool. Do you have thoughts about that? Before I step in, I don't want to talk the whole time.
No, I think
Okay.
this is what you mostly hear.
Yeah. So for me, interesting is, I mean, obviously we heard ambition, being the provider, taking care of the family, creating safety, being communicative, right? Being very communicative. Yet we're here is like, no, my past, I don't really want to communicate these type of things.
I knew that
It's
you were gonna say
incongruent. You know, it's like we want that communication piece. He needs to be able to communicate, but then like these pieces that might be very important to the men in terms of sexual history and these type of things. I don't want to communicate that. Where's that coming from? Because there's clearly a double standard in some ways, right? And we have double standards anywhere and everywhere all the time. So,
Again, why would you want to know?
well, like I said, we're talking about husband and wifey material and like father of my child.
Yeah, but if
or
you want to
mother of
judge
my
me
child.
based if I'm wifey material, then I will be like, I don't know. No, I don't know. I would
I mean,
be.
you're
I would
judging a
just.
man too, right?
So I would
You're
just
judging
go
man's like,
against
can he
it.
nurture for me? Can he take care of me? Can he provide for my family? Can he take care? Can he hold me? Can he be stable? Is he ambitious? Does he have purpose?
Yeah.
Those are all judgments as well that you have for the man that's
Expectations.
supposed to be the
I don't
mother.
think
Yeah,
that's
of course.
judgments. I think that's
Those are expectations.
those are like desires I want in a man,
And the same
and
with
I
the
don't
man.
feel that's the same as judgments.
Yes, it is.
No.
Like, it is. You judge, oh, it meets my expectations or not. Of
Yeah,
course it
it's
is.
a
It's
judgment. Everything is a
expectations, yeah.
judgment.
If I have a desire
Yes.
and it's not met,
Yeah, then
Then
it's
that's
a judgment.
then it's a okay,
Yeah.
exactly. Then it's a
Yeah.
But if I have a desire and it's like met or not met, it's just a simple desire. So right now, if I'm meeting a man, like I'm not gonna say, oh, let me see if you.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Of course, it's like, wait a second. Is this
I
man
actually don't.
good enough to, like, can he take care of my family?
Because
Does he
that's
have that
rational. Then
ambition?
where do you take
But
away the whole connection of two human beings?
We're not talking about like on the first date, that's a conversation that you have. Generally speaking, you evaluate that connection.
But
you
I-
evaluate and assess this relationship and this man.
But I think no one on the table said a clear no. So this is what I've heard, that even we who said kind of no, it was not that we would say if the conversation would be open, like, oh no, don't talk to me about that. It's more like, okay, we can talk about it in a respectful way. But if there's an energy exchange of, oh, I feel judged by you, or I feel that actually what you're asking is out of an insecurity, it's the wrong intention for it. And I truly believe that we as human beings, we have a sense of deep down within us that when we communicate and it's a purity behind it, then there's also a respectful way, even when there are disagreements or some feeling of, oh, that hit me right now. But we are able to handle it if it's purity. But that's what you already asked a couple of times as well. Is like, what is the intention of asking? And I can tell from my own past that when I started to ask questions like that, it was out of an insecurity. Once I got the answer that I didn't want to hear, it hit me even more. So I felt even worse after that. Plus, the judgment was there where I didn't see the person how I saw her before, because there was a lot of, okay, so you've explained your sexual experience, whatever, or how many partners you had. So okay, and now I have the judgment you're a slut. But before I thought, wow, what an amazing human being. How beautiful did we connect? But so
Yeah,
But who is that judgment on? Like you're making that assumption and you're putting that on her.
sure.
That she's a beautiful woman first, and then,
And then
what do you mean?
suddenly she's a slut.
Sure, and that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
It's like, but-
What is the intention behind asking the question? Like I said, for me, it was definitely insecurity. So I'm very curious about I mean, of course, we're talking about it. I'm very curious. What are the questions that you would ask? It's like, okay, what numbers, whatever, how, what was the, so what would be specific questions that you would ask?
Well, I don't think it's just specific questions as if it's an interrogation. It's in conversation that things come up. For example, you have a fantastic sexual experience and then you ask, okay, what other wonderful things did you have in the past? Can you explain to me what you really like?
But
Oh, I would love to share that.
Wait. So, to me, it's not necessarily, doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from, I want to trust that this person doesn't want to hide. It's not that, I had a partner that she was very discreet, or extremely discreet. It was really hard for me. I accepted that because that I'm not going to force somebody to share something that she doesn't want to do.
Yeah, you have to.
But for me, that is a block for intimacy.
But look, even when, because you said, oh, we would have a beautiful sexual experience, and then it's just what for me is like, okay, why should I have a beautiful sexual experience with a woman in that moment, and then saying like, oh, what kind of beautiful experiences did you have in your past?
Not
like,
immediately after
boom,
that.
like how do you ruin the moment of intimacy and of a beautiful experience and then we come to visualization in that moment with other partners or sexual experiences that she had, and it's like, what's the fucking point about talking about that now? So for it's just my opinion on that. So it's more, and that's what I've said in the beginning is, it's not necessarily so if we don't have to build a foundation on our beautiful experiences on our past. If I would have a beautiful experience with my partner or whoever, then I could ask, oh, what do you desire? What would you love to experience beyond that? So it's based on now, it's based on the future, but not going back into the past and trying to fit in with something that she experienced back in the days.
Do you think the past matters at all? Or should you just always live in the present moment and look into the future?
No, I mean, my past shaped me. My past were my traumas that were holding me back from being who I am today.
Sure.
Definitely. But yeah, why do you think is it related to that?
It's very related.
It's very related, right?
Absolutely.
But why cling on to the past?
But it's not clinging.
It's not clinging.
Exploring.
It's exploring. It's curiosity. It's
But you-
understanding a person on deeper levels and like, how did she come to this, or how did he come to this man that he is right now, or to this woman, and how does she think? Where is it rooted in? There's so many different things that I can explore about a woman, why she is who she is right now.
How she grew.
But that's why I was asking, okay, what would be questions? Because of course I also had experiences, conversations about previous sexual experiences, but it naturally happened. And even when someone says then, it's so interesting because a couple of days ago I had a situation like that with my I'm in a fresh relationship, and we were talking about it. And then two days after I got the topic about the conversation today, I was like, I sent it to her, and she was like, how beautiful does universe work that it happened that way. And there was a point where I asked her, okay, so when was the last time that you had sex? And for her, it wasn't that she was like, oh, why you're asking that? So it was more, it was 4 months ago, but why are you curious? So I felt in that moment that there's kind of a resistance towards that, and I don't want to force someone to go into deeper details by something that maybe caused a resistance. And okay, resistance is there to, okay, why do you feel like that, and how can we solve that? But if she doesn't feel comfortable about talking about some topics, in my opinion, it's not relevant for the now.
Yeah, so I help people to go in full intensity. I believe that when there's discomfort, of course, you don't have to always dig because it needs to be fun too, you know. But like, if she becomes really uncomfortable for it, why? That's really interesting then. That's really interesting to go dig like, okay, let's see, baby. Like, why is this uncomfortable for you to talk about? Are you ashamed about when you had sex? Like, what is that?
I asked her why, and she said it has just nothing to do with the now. She said she understands my point of view that I'm asking her, because she said it's interesting that we're so different, that for me it's relevant and for her less. So for her, there was definitely the point of understanding, hey, I understand you asking me, but I wouldn't ask you in exchange because for me, it doesn't matter.
But but that's also beautiful. I believe that there's like this kind of unilateral intimacy whereby, for example, I want to know everything and my partner tells me everything, I will be happy. But I know, like my current partner, I don't tell her because it hurts her, and so I would not do that because she just hurts her, so I will not do that then. I have respect for other people's thing, but I really believe that also. That's the question. Do you believe that in a certain intimacy it has to be bi-directional? You need to have the same things or not?
You mean same things?
The same desires
Or
with
both.
The
terms
same
of
level of
sexuality.
intimacy in terms of the way how we communicate.
Intimacy, communication, it can be everything. It can even be at a moment where my heart was broken, but it was a very beautiful moment because I realized that I could love fully with an open heart and not get it met. And it was a very intimate moment for me. Not for her, but that didn't invalidate my intimacy, didn't invalidate my experience. So
I think when you're in that position and you communicate that it's not met, and I think that's the only thing for me that really there's one alignment, and that's communication. That even in these moments that you are not met, like you are being super vulnerable, that you can even express that. I think that will be for me the only like the ground rule.
Communication.
I think what comes up for me.
It's funny, right?
Judgments. I hear judgments.
No, because he knew when I was asking that, wait a second, we have these women who want to be able to communicate and be very open and honest, yet there are certain pieces that we don't necessarily want to share.
But
For
But
whatever
I
kind of
don't
reasons,
think it's
right?
like, I mean, I was a soft no, but it's not because I'm trying to hide something or there's something I don't want to communicate. Like ultimately, like if I have like my life partner or my husband, like I hope that eventually we know everything about each other. It's not that I like don't want to reveal something. It's just that I think communication naturally happens, like, and intimacy naturally evolves as like trust builds. And it's not like, for example, I'm going on a second date tomorrow, and it's not like on that second date I'm going to be like, here's everything that I've ever done sexually ever,
Of course
like
not. We're
so
fully on the same page.
it's just kind of like how I think it's more subtle in the sense of like how does communicate, like how do we share things and when, and like you said, like what are the questions you're going to ask, like what are the questions I ask, for example, on a second date or like before I have sex with someone. Like main questions that I want to know is like when they were last tested for STDs and like if they have any other current sexual partners. But other than that, I don't care like about their sexual history in that moment. I mean, beyond that, you know what I
I
mean?
also think there's a big difference between man and woman, generally speaking. Maybe not so much here on this table because both of you guys, you don't really seem to care so much about the sexual past of the woman. But from what I got to understand, there's a lot of men. Sexual history of a woman is very important. And that's not the same for women the other way around. As you said, I want a lover. I want a man that is a good lover. I'm okay that he actually has some more experience and whatnot. It's not necessarily the same. I don't want my woman to be more experienced in bed than I am, for example. Just as, and you will, if you ask a lot of men, you will get a lot of these same
Why not?
answers.
I'm like, are you sure?
Why not?
because then there's a very high chance that she has slept with a bunch of different men.
And what does
For
it mean
example.
for you?
do you feel insecure?
It has
Or is
nothing to
there-
do with insecurities. There's like certain values and principles, and in the way how I want to live my relationship. It's actually the opposite of insecurity. It's like, here's what I like. This is what I want in a relationship, in a romantic partnership. And if something outside of it, then it's just not for me, and that's perfectly fine. So it has nothing to do with insecurity. It's the opposite. It's security, knowing what do I desire and what do I not desire.
But so how do you measure it? Do you date a woman and in order to explore it, you need to have sex? And once you had and especially the first times are not. Mostly the first time is you discover each other, so it's a different thing. But when you have multiple times sex, and once you reach that point where you feel like, oh, actually she has too much experience for me. Like it seems like she was sleeping with too many men. So that will be, even when you connected, when you like her, when you start to feel intimate, when you build a connection, and you felt that there is something that that you're deeply connected to her soul. Once you've explored that, you would be like, oh, you have too much experience, so it's not anymore what you fit into a potential wife or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think you're kind of going a little bit too far ahead, because like it's questionable if I would connect on this very deep, intimate space that you just shared, that I'm like so deeply in love with this woman without having these type of conversations. And it doesn't mean like, hey, what's your body count? You know, that's not how you have a conversation like this. But like asking certain questions in regard to like someone's history and someone's intimate partners and how has that been and whatnot. I think those are very valid questions to ask, because you can also see, you know, some women, a lot of women actually, I just looked it up the other day. It's like, I think 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 women has like sexual abuse in her life, you know? So I would like to know that, because then I can also care and consider that so much more in the way how I'm going to open up that intimate container with her.
Well, it's not about you then. It's about that woman, if she even wants you to do that, right?
But it's still, we need to be able to have this conversation to open it up in the first place, to have this conversation connect with more intimacy with each other, right? So it's not just judgment. There's so much more that's, you know, behind that.
Yeah, I'm curious, like what questions you ask and like when you ask them, like on what date and like what are the questions?
To be honest, I don't have like a set of rules or a set of questions or like when do I ask certain questions. You know, I can be with a lover and like we're intimate for the first time, and after we had sex or whatever and we've been intimate, there might be certain questions that are coming up. We're cuddling, we're in a very beautiful intimate space with each other, and then you just bring it up. And it's like, hey, you know what? There's something that came to my mind. And I just talk about this. There are no filters. Because why? If we can't have, like, we've already been like to one of the most intimate spaces possible. Like now we can have a conversation about that. That feels strange to me. That feels like, as you said, there's like blockages, there are walls and whatnot. And to me, I'd rather remove them straight away than like waiting 5, 6, 10 weeks or, you know, 100 dates before I feel like I can bring that up.
So you know what I just noticed is that the asking question and then getting the answer, because I think you've been saying that a couple of times that it naturally happens. And what I've been experiencing, especially like I used to have like sex without thinking of there's an energy exchange. For me now, I'm very, very conscious about that. So that's why I don't just have sex with anyone anymore. So when I'm having it,
Ever?
Well, I am.
Okay, good.
But I'm saying now that I'm not just having sex for the sake of sex anymore. So when I am having sex, it's very much like intentional. We're doing this. Your energy is good enough to be inside of me.
Yeah, as you should.
I'm very aware of that. So while I'm in that process, I've noticed that men open up about their past to make the situation secure. So they open up and tell what their past has been. And I open up without me being asked and me without asking him. So I think the one thing that got me a little bit ick was about the fact that we're sitting and asking questions rather not letting it evolve or open and have a natural communication about it. So I think I would love to know, I'm here to hear it when that person wants to share it. But if it's a deal breaker, it's not a deal breaker for me, but it will definitely put me a little bit more secure and more like if you open it up on your own. Does that make sense?
So, okay, let's use that as an example. Why can I not open up that conversation and asking a question?
I think
That's
you
what
can.
I do, right?
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay.
The whole thing about what is your intention, with what direction are we going these questions will arise, I guess, if you ask questions. So I would be curious, why would you want to know, or what is the intention? I would not per se not answer, because I feel like I definitely would want to answer. You know, I would for the growth of myself and in that relationship, I would want to answer, because I think honesty and communication, like, absolutely. Again, behind it, the reasoning, like why. I don't know what you think about it. But.
Well, yeah, I think intention is everything in behind what we're doing and what we're saying and how we're communicating. I think we all agree it's not about like we're going to line up questions and we're just going to gunshot them. I think we all agree it's about an evolution, right? So, And I agree with what you said. It's like as they come up naturally, I mean, as we explore more and more intimate spaces, I think it's natural to want to know more or be curious about more. And I think what you said something earlier about, you know, having a partner that doesn't necessarily is comfortable opening up. And I think, like, I was thinking about that for myself, and having a partner that could respect that would be epic in the sense that it would then give me space to then open up. Right. So it's like this constant evolution of more and more space being created so that if a question does arise, I feel safe to answer it.
And I love that you hold the space. That will be like like this is what I try to say. Like if it's like a questions and like it's a setting, I guess it's a setting when you're holding, like I love when a man holds space and asks like, what's on your heart? Like, do you want to express anything? And just allows that emptiness to just not feeling any quietness, just allow. I love that, you know, and then maybe more questions arise. And of course. And that's from a loving place, right? This is maybe why I find it so important that men are in their true self, because you come from that loving place. And then it becomes less of a judgment, and it becomes more like, I want to get to know you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I would not have a problem sharing if I feel the questions are coming not from like trying to gain something for yourself, but it's more about like caring about me and wanting to know about me, like what has happened in my life, or maybe do I need like maybe special attention around those areas because there's like certain trauma that would happen sexually or whatever that is. But I think it's really important and beautiful to get to know each other on the intimate level, on the, like the intimacy, and but creating the space where we can share about that without like having us. And I can totally relate. Like I've definitely shared about my history and no problem, and without even like having questions, but just like naturally come up in conversation. And if it is being us, then for me it's like, you know, like why is it being us kind of, but also feeling into it is like, what is the intention behind that?
And this is what I meant before, is that I mean, if we communicate out of purity and honesty, it's energetically something that we exchange, and that's why for me it wasn't a clear no, because if it's just saying yes with the wrong intention, then I believe we miss the point of asking questions about that. But if it's purity, if it's connection, if it's a clear intention, then why not having this natural conversation that will happen time over time?
But then the question is, what is purity?
I was just about to ask.
You know, like, what is purity? Like, if you are, even if you're insecure, and you have the balls to come out from, I'm insecure, I would love to know more about your past. Is that not very powerful too? Is that not really being
It
yourself?
is. That is purity. That is vulnerability.
So you could go even further. Like, isn't it also pure if you know, like, okay, I'm looking for that type of a woman, to go back to this extreme of like, you know, the mother of my child. I know what I want. I've explored other things. I know what I not want. Knowing also the type of energy exchange that happens. So I don't want a woman who had like 100 men in her life. It's just not what I want for the mother of my child. If I ask that question, isn't that like from a very pure intention to figure out like, okay, can this be a potential partner for me or not?
It is. That's why I think it's a little bit, or it went somehow into direction while we were communicating, because there are different layers to talk about that and different ways to communicate.
Sure.
But definitely, I mean, if you ask from that place, it's just making sure if you see her potentially creating a future together, then why not asking that question? And then it comes to, okay, I mean, I just want to make sure that we fit in a way that is just my opinion on how I view my dream wife, let's say.
And what if you did meet your dream wife and she like hits off on all the checkpoints, and then you're like, okay, well, this is really important to me, I need to ask. And then it turns out, it's like whatever in 70 bulk. And maybe she had some history before, when, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Whatever she went through
Yeah.
for that to happen. Like, would you just be like, okay, no, I have to walk away, even though I love you, I see you as my perfect partner, you meet me on all the values right now at this moment, but because you had 70 partners, I have to walk away?
Good question. It's very easy to answer. Is that one thing a non-negotiable for you or not? If it is a non-negotiable, then you have to walk away, because that's not she's not the perfect partner. Actually, she is far off from being a perfect partner. If that thing, and obviously every man is different, right? If that thing is like, that's not what I want for my family, for whatever kind of reasons, right? We all have our different reasons and opinions why XYZ is, why we're believing in this and not in the other thing. If that's the case, I'm like, okay, that's just not the mother of my child. That's not the partner that I want in my life. It's the same thing. She could be the perfect partner for me, but then she can't communicate. We try to work on it and whatnot, just as to take something else, not like the sexual thing, and then she's like our communication is absolutely terrible, and we worked on it and it doesn't really work. Then I have to walk away from that too, because we're just not compatible.
Right, but communication relates to the present moment, but talking about the history, sexual history, is different thing.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's probability. People tend to live in patterns, and yeah, you can do a lot of inner work, but in my work with people change very slow, if at all.
Why do you say no? Why do you say it's not different?
Because we're so influenced, whether we're conscious of it or not. And typically it's so much subconscious behavior that's imprinted and influencing our relationship to self and to others.
Yeah. This is when actions have consequences. And you can also see what are someone's values and how much are they in self-respect with those.
But the values change over years. Like if that happened 20 years ago, 20 years, 10 years, whatever, that's a long time for the values to change.
It is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that those of us who said no or soft no don't value communication. At least for me, that's not true. I value communication 100%.
Oh, that's very
I
clear.
think we just
For all of us, I
communicate
think, right? We have established that.
Yeah, we have different ways of communication or something. I don't know. It's isn't this a Buddhist thing or something that's we communicate before you speak something, you're supposed to consider is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary?
Right.
I think this is an interesting principle to bring into this conversation is we've talked about this a lot of the intention and the intention when we're asking a question or the intention when we're sharing information. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And it's not because we're trying to hide something. It's just I don't know, just the way we communicate is maybe slightly different.
Well, yeah, I used to be extremely extreme, and I hurt a lot of people because it was indeed for how they felt and imagined it. It was not kind, and so I have learned to become a bit more subtle and tactic, and just be a bit more patient instead of. But I do want, for me, I want to know the complete woman, everything, the past, the future. And that is to help me to become even more trusting in the present moment. It is not devoid from the present moment. No, it's the foundation of the present moment, where she came from, how she grew. And again, I do not. For me, if a woman has 100 partners in the past, well, yeah, I don't care. I do. I mean, it will impact me, of course. But at the same time, if she's here with me and she can be fully with me, and by engaging with her, I can trust. Okay, yeah, I can really trust her. Then I personally do not care, but that's very personal. But I do want to know the evolution of this beautiful being.
It seems like we've talked a lot about numbers, and I'm just curious, what are the other things about the sexual history that we would want to ask about.
Very good question.
Like we've really focused on this number thing a lot.
For me, it was not so much about the number. For me, it's
Yeah.
much more about the, all the flavors that she likes to explore.
Yeah, like what's like your erotic blueprint, or like what kind of sexuality do you enjoy? Like primal or energetic or sensual or kinky? Like
Or
how can we
everything.
align sexually? Do we align sexually or not?
Yeah, but
Interesting question.
but then again, is it necessarily to ask if that was something that she explored already in the past? So if there is
Yes.
so if there's something that I want to explore with her, I mean, of course, I can ask, hey, is that something that you've already experienced, or is it something that you want to? Is it something that you've already experienced? But then the conversation, it's like, okay, check. Like, why going into details then?
No,
We make clear what is your need. What do you want to? How do you want to meet your needs? Do you want to meet your needs with me? Is it something that we get along with? But then that's it.
to me, it's I want to feel it, I want to see it, I want to smell it, I want to know her onto such a deep level that she fucking merges with my body, with my soul, and with my brain. That I, in that moment of communication, I evaporate.
You just want to disappear, basically.
I want to disappear in that moment with her.
Let's use shibari.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
You're with your woman and you ask,
Shibari is kind of like bondage, right?
Rope bondage, yeah.
sacred nodding.
So beautiful.
So you ask your partners, like, have you done shibari? It's like, yeah, I've done it. I really don't like it. It was a terrible experience. Don't you want to know more about that?
Yes.
Let's say you're a shibari master. And then it's like, oh, wow, yeah, it makes totally sense that everything has been wrong for you because none of like the standards and the way how these things are actually done in a sacred way have actually been applied. So
but then
if you don't ask further questions, then you will never get those answers.
But then we're getting to the point that that's a natural way of the situation that happened. It's not that I ask you something and you give me the answer and it's like, okay, check. If you would say that's a great example, because if there's something experienced that is negatively associated, where there's some tension, some resistance towards that, of course I want to know why. But then it's a natural flow of the conversation. Okay, we're in that container now. It feels safe to talk about it. You maybe had a bad experience. So do you want first? And it's not forcing. It's like, do you want to share? What happened that you feel that makes you feel like that?
I agree, but I think that's for negative experience and positive experience and anything in between where you can have these conversations. And also, I think if a woman says like, you know what, I don't feel safe enough in our container right now. I rather don't share right now, but I'm open to it later on. I can respect that, but just like, no, I don't want to talk about that. Then I'm like, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Let's say you have the husband, like he's the perfect man. You know, for him, it's really important that you don't have a bunch of partners. And you're like, shit, I had a lot of partners, but he's kind of perfect. Like, are you going to share that? Are you going to keep that away?
No,
You
I
know,
would not
like,
want to
when
be
you
with
gonna bring
someone
that
who's
up?
not
Like,
aligned
there's-
with me. Yeah, of course.
To me, it's not about Gestapo questioning. I think it's looked too much. It's like now it's about the questioning. No, I think we all agree on the similar things. I hear that people will share things from the past when it comes up automatically, when it's open, flowers open. And I think just our three, we would love to know the person and much more details than other people. But I think there's not so much change in what. It's perhaps the how, but I don't see that there's so much difference between us all. I think we all want to be into it. We want to really not get to know each other, and we need to feel safe to disclose, our more vulnerable parts that, for the general society, you get be judged, or even potentially of your potential partner. So.
I'm curious, would you want to feel safe, or are you just always, you said you have been always open and that made maybe other people hurt?
Yeah.
You hurt people by,
And then I tried to shut up, and that was even worse.
so one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm curious for men, like, would you want to feel safe as well, or would you be open either way?
But that's why, like, you know, it's how I feel safe is by knowing.
By knowing about the past
Every-
of like everything about that woman that
Yeah,
makes you
because-
feel
yeah,
safe, so
because
you will
even
share
me,
too.
I even had experiences where she was really attracted to another man too, you know, but she was completely honest with me.
To what?
To another man, and that
Okay.
hurt. Like it's difficult. I'm an alpha. I wanna, she's mine, you know, but she's not, you know. And so then she communicates that with me. But it's very weird. I feel pain. I feel anxiety. But at the same time, there's a deep sense of trust because she dares to share with me something that is so difficult to share because she knows it will hurt me deeply.
Yeah.
You know. Then I feel trust. I don't want to communicate with the people with a mask or with a smoke screen.
I'm the same. I can always share. I've been at a young age. I learned the more I step into these uncomfortable conversations in all areas of my life, the easier they actually become until they're not uncomfortable at all anymore in that regard. You can just have these conversations about absolutely everything, and you also open up the space for others to do the same because you're not going to judge them immediately. You see that respect and that openness that someone brings to you to just share their truth, their everything with you. And I think that just creates so much more depth and connection and intimacy. And since I am very secure within myself, I don't mind sharing anything, and I can own that. And there's just like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it in some regards, you know. You might not like it, and that's perfectly fine, but like that's still who I am. There's nothing I need to change about that or that I need to hide about that.
I think avoidance is one of the biggest problems.
Sorry, one more thing. And actually, women love that. Even though sometimes that might be very uncomfortable to hear, at the end of the day, it gives them more security. It gives them more safety because that man is not hiding anything. You can really see who he is in his true nature, rather than all these question marks. Yeah, but what about this? What about that? Just ask me. I'll tell you the answer.
I can tell you as a woman. Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Super
And it's the other way
attractive.
around as well, I would say. At least for me personally, it's the other way around as well. A woman who can really share her everything with me without like any filters, without like anything else, that's more attractive to me. That creates more intimacy and connection that I'm like, okay, I want to open up more.
I feel this is more about a communication rather than you
Being
know,
required to share.
because when you're
I think the required word is what's like
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, because you know maybe the timing is not perfect, but it comes back to the communication. How is that being done?
Of course, yeah. And you know, these questions obviously phrased in a way that they're somewhat polarizing. So we have a conversation about it, right?
I have a question for you, Sasha.
Okay.
It's like rolling in my mind, but why the number thing? Like, why is it important? I know you like said like it's my values. I need to know, but like, what's gonna make a difference? Like, why? Would you be down to share
We're creatures
that?
of habits. We're creatures of patterns.
Okay.
If I have a woman who like consistently changing their partners over and over again, there's a pattern that I can see, and I cannot ignore that pattern. That's there, and it might take a long time, if possible at all, to show me that this is not a reoccurring pattern all of a sudden anymore.
But
And what about if it was like, okay, 50 partners but that was like 5 years ago, and in 5 years it's been only like few or whatever, you know,
put that
close
into
to.
consideration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's also context.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, always. There's always a lot of context, right?
I think the context is actually what's more interesting and important for me in terms of a connection with someone. Like if someone told me like a certain number, it's kind of like, all right, like it doesn't mean anything to me, but I would ask more nuanced questions like, what does sex mean to you? What has it meant to you in the past? What have you learned from your sexual experiences? What sexual experiences were positive ones? What were hurtful ones? Like,
So
you know,
here
like,
we are. If a man asks those questions, we kind of had a little bit of that consent. We don't really want to talk about that as women. And I'm not saying like you, I said like, no, I really don't want to talk about it, but I feel like there's a little bit of an energy. It's like, yeah, but why do I have to share this?
no,
Right?
for me,
Love
it was
to
more
just
the
ask a bunch
energy of like,
questions.
why do I have to
Like,
share
oh,
a number, or like what's the meaning behind that number? But if someone's like genuinely curious about my sexual history and like asking me this way, and we have this safe connection, like of course I want to share those things. Like I want intimacy and connection and to be sharing everything and them sharing it with me. So it just comes back to this intention. But for me, there's just much more. There's much more flavor and interest and depth and like these nuanced questions than just a number. Like to me, a number doesn't matter for me to share, for them to share. Like I'm just curious, like, yeah, what turns them on? What have they learned from in their sexual experiences? Like, are they polyamorous? Are they monogamous? Like, are they kinky? Are they primal? Like all these different, there's so many different questions about our sexual experiences and history that I would be so interested to ask and share. So I think it's just much beyond the number to me.
Well, I was not really talking about the number.
I think you were the one who brought up the number, and then it became.
It became a thing. You started it.
We're trying to move away from it, and we're going back
We
to the
keep
numbers.
coming to it.
No, but I think it's because that's the most polarizing thing. Because it's like, that's why I throw it up. You know, it's the most polarizing thing. Because indeed it goes with a lot of judgment. You know? But you know, so actually you do love to share your sexual experience and want to know it from your past. You just don't want to be a questioning from a place of hey, but what did you do in the past?
Yeah. That's why I was a soft no. I was like, yes, no.
So I am curious for the men then again. I mean, maybe we are assuming that the past was like the less experienced and this is the most epic experience. What if the past has been like an epic experience? That's a lot of like pressure, right?
No.
Okay.
I want to know every little detail.
No, so he knows how to recreate it.
Make it better. Absolutely.
Sold.
For me, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable about that at all. One, I can be very happy for you because you had a healthy sex life, which is a big plus, you know, rather than dealing with a woman who had the opposite, you know. That's a whole different story that as a man you kind of have to deal with and consider, and like you know, the type of intimacy that you can create. There are so many more challenges and obstacles for obvious reasons. So if you had a very healthy, beautiful, ecstatic sex life in your past, good on you, you know. And why would I feel insecure about that?
Well, this is the question I'm very curious about, because I feel like a lot of men, without the intention of doing so, they feel all like almost like obligated, or like there's a tension or pressure, or I need to like level up. I need to like
It's
up
about
my
performance
game.
then again.
Because they're not good lovers. They're not good men. They're not integrated. They're not stable within themselves. So therefore, they're projecting all that bullshit on you and like going into this performance type mentality. But if you actually like, you know who you are, you know what you stand for, you know like the way how you can show up as a lover, as a father, as a husband, as like, you know, a partner, and you can hold that space, then why would it make you feel insecure?
And epic is totally subjective, isn't it?
Yes.
So you could say it is epic, and then you would have whatever me as a lover, and you would be like, oh, that's more than just epic. For example, so it's just a subjective opinion on the experience that you had in your past. But why should I project and feel insecure instead of saying, yeah, I mean, I can fit in that epic thing as well. Like, why not? Maybe not. I mean, it's also something. It's just it would be something like putting me on a pedestal somehow. It's your definition of what is epic for you, right?
Yeah, but that's the only thing that matters to you. If this is your partner and she has an epic sex life or an epic sexual experience in the past, then like that's a
standard.
Yeah.
I mean, standard or I don't know, just like that's a beautiful experience that you had.
I think, you know, if you have had that in the past and then you come with a man where it's much more of a struggle, you know, the love will still be there, but it will be very, very challenging, I think. Or with a woman, same thing. I had a partner who both pretty experienced. It just didn't work. And it was horrible. We both had fantastic experience with others before, but yeah, it just didn't work, and for the rest we were very good, but that was a real breaking point, and so I think it is really relevant, but not from a performance standpoint, more from a kind of a connection that works.
Compatibility.
Basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I believe if compatibility is there, if there's no expectation, if it's just a room for exploration and not about performance, then I mean, I said that epic is subjective, but I think that's deep down what all of us desire.
Then it becomes an epic just by playing together.
Yeah. So and then it comes into values and not, okay, I need to perform, I have expectation XYZ, I need to make her come, I need to come or whatever. So it's more like, okay, let's explore.
Yeah.
Can we swap that question around now? And ask like, how do women feel if a man shares like, in the past I had my ex-partners, lovers or whatever, the most amazing, tantric, over the top, wow type sexual experiences. What does it do in you if you would hear that from me?
It definitely depends for me in what stage of the relationship I am.
Okay.
So if it's very in the beginning, I would be like,
Pressure.
what does he want?
So would you ask questions then?
About like to explore more about that. So to be honest, I really think it's also depending on if I would be interested in those things, but I've never done it and he has, I would 100% ask questions.
Yeah.
Because I am intrigued and I am visualizing it. But I'm visualizing it with myself. I'm 100% the visualizer.
Well, you can have a lot of fun with your thoughts, that's for sure.
Okay, so so in the beginning of the relationship, when you just get to know each other, it would create a lot of pressure on you.
I would almost feel,
Intimidated. Almost.
Intimidated or like, this is a lot of conditioning for women. That being good enough. There's a thing where I feel like women can really love easily, whether they had like an epic background or not or whatever. Women can tap into love and love easily, like without a thing. Whether we have these expectations, even like, they don't meet the expectations, but we love them. It's very easy, I feel. And this comes back to that, right? So, but this is also because majority, I know I'm generalizing a lot, so be with me. It's like this people pleaser thing, right? We're conditioned almost like that. We live for the other. We're the mother, we're the take care giver. So it's very hard, I admit. I would really need to be consciously detaching myself from the experience of that he has with myself. But unconsciously, I would probably feel like almost like comparing myself with his experiences.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Unless I'm like super aware, I'm like, okay, this is his.
Yeah, this has happened to me recently, actually, where I had a new lover who had a tantra teacher as a partner in the past, and I was like, comparing myself to this person initially, and then like what was coming through for me is like we each have our own unique sexuality, and each connection is unique and special. So I mean, even though initially there's this insecurity and like being in the mind and comparing yourself to this other person, like ultimately I know that like I am like perfect in myself, and this unique expression of myself, and my sexuality is something that no one else has. And the chemistry between us as two people is something that he's never had with someone else. And so I just think like this is what it comes down to, is like there's ultimately like infinite space in our hearts to love, and so there's no need for us to compare ourselves to previous lovers, because each connection is going to be unique and have its own unique flavor, and you can't say that like one is like more epic than the other one. Like they're just all different flavors. They're all
and you can have the same experience. The same experience is wrong said. You can have the same thing with another person, but it feels completely different.
exactly.
And I think it only would become an issue if it kept referencing this experience. Like, I would love to know, like, what was the experience? What made it so remarkable that we can take aspects of it and bring it in. But if it suddenly becomes, well, this person, what happened with this person, and this, like, if it keeps coming up, then there's an issue.
It's super insensitive.
Yes. Like, I'm happy if you
That's a red flag.
I had the same thing in my mind. That's a red flag.
But I think
then again, like, you're judging it. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, but like, I would want my partner to have had epic experiences. Like, it's part of life. It's part of growth. It's part of just, I mean, if I want to have an epic sex life with him, then there's got to be some learning that's gone on that's happened outside of the two of us, in my opinion.
And I think it's coming back to the context, like, why is he sharing that, right? So, and sometimes sharing this kind of experiences that are not really relevant, that feel like not relevant, might hinder the current even sexual relationship. Like, us women might make us feel tighter, or like not being able to surrender fully to being in the moment with a partner, because maybe we are like too much in our head and thinking, oh, are we performing up to the standard of this previous relationship? Why did even he bring that up? You know, like, why he's saying that? Is he implying that I need to go to whatever tantra school and learn some more technique? Whatever that is, it's like sometimes sharing or asking questions about the previous history might hinder the current kind of present moment connection that you have. For maybe that's not necessary, but there's other ways how you can communicate. So if you're a man, if that's something coming up, I was like, oh, well, I had this amazing tantric goddess and she was like way better in bed. But then how do you like communicate that without causing insecurity in other person or hindering your current experience with the lover? And you can say, well, you know, like, if you're open, I've had some experiences, beautiful experiences as woman. Maybe if you're open, I can introduce you to the technique, or like, I would really love to receive more pleasure in that space.
I think you brought up two different things. One is he just starts sharing, and the other one is like you asking a question and like basically getting an answer to your question. I think those are like very, very different. With the first one, I agree. If he just like out of the blue starts sharing things, that might be a little bit awkward, right? And that can still be done in a way that it creates more safety and more security, because he's just sharing something that's really on his heart, and he wants to like bring it to the table in order for the two of you connect, and you get a little bit more of an insight what's happening inside of his heart and with his sensations and whatnot. And the other one is like you asking a question, and then he just gives you an honest answer, which can still be done in a considerate way, but it might not be the answer that you would like to hear, you know? And there's the thing, I just heard this quote the other day, is like, if it gets if you're getting punished for telling the truth, you're basically asking for them to lie, to start lying.
That's a good one.
Which I thought is like a really powerful thing to think of. You know, if you ask a question and you get some harsh truth, even sometimes it's not the one that you would like to hear, you cannot punish that person for that.
I'm totally with you.
I can send it to you after.
That's a good one.
Because that brings to mind like the idea of self-responsibility. Like, if you're the one who's constantly being triggered, like your partner's just sharing and you're constantly being triggered, where are you in this equation? It's such a big piece of it. Right, just to bridge the gap. But
So it's not only about the other person being ready to share, but it's about the person who's asking the question being ready to receive that.
Exactly.
So if someone asks these questions that might be even uncomfortable to hear the answer, it actually tells you a little bit more like, okay, where's this person? If like I ask you these like quite intimate questions, and you're like, oh my God, why is he asking me this question? This is so intimate and whatnot. It actually gives you some data points as well. Maybe sometimes they come from insecurity, but they can also be the case that is like, no, because he's very secure with himself. And one, he wants to get to know you. And two is like, it could create more it will create more intimacy. And it's just like you're creating a foundation of truth and transparency, you know?
Tapping into the moment, you know, we're talking about them from the mind so often right now. That when you're intimate with someone, you speak from the heart, and these questions come from a different place.
Yeah.
So I think it's very right, like what is logical again, like, and then we always almost make it like this questionnaire, right? But I think if we're coming from a love, and I want to love you more, and I want to get to know you more, and I want you to get to me more, then of course I will share whatever you want to know. But then I would already tap into what your intention is, like what the feeling is of, is this person, where is this person coming from?
Yeah.
And if it's very toxic feeling that I'm getting, I would not share everything. One, I would feel I would need to be feeling secure.
Yeah.
And two, I don't want to feed that toxic energy.
Yeah.
How would you define a toxic energy?
I mean, I'm putting so much labels today on everything right now. It's incredible. I think what I try to generalize again with toxic is this whole anything that is tamas, that is like the negative aspects, right? Like the insecurity, the jealousy, the ego, everything that is related to that. That would for me feel not something I would want to feed more on by telling you.
Something that comes from a place from me instead of you.
Yeah.
Dope. Okay. How do we wrap this up? Because I love why. Another reason why I like to have these conversations, because it's a beautiful opportunity for all of us to learn something new, right? Because we're having these new insights from the other gender, from the other sex, or like even from the same. It's like, oh wow, I never really thought about it this way. What are one of those takeaways that you guys had from today's conversation? Or maybe new questions that came up because of it, you know?
Well, now I know that for men, it seems like this is important. I mean, that's like what's coming up. Like they really want to know the sexual history and the intimacy and go dive into the details even. So it's that's like something new, and like the little facts that like you're sharing, I was like, oh really? Like, yeah, men are looking at that stuff.
I would not take this as a takeaway. I would actually ask that man if he wants to know, because I do believe and I know a lot of men who would not be okay with that, who don't want to know for insecurity reasons, for like whatever kind of, you know. So I think it's almost like if someone can receive these things and is open to hear whatever is happening in your life and happened in your life in the past, that gives you more indicators of how integrated that man really is.
Exactly.
And how comfortable and confident he is within themselves and that connection.
Yeah, there's definitely a few sides to look at it.
Yeah. Thank you. Who else? Who has something?
Well, I think I've become already much more tactful in my relationships, but I think based on what I heard today, you know, I think I can use a bit more tact even more. Be a bit more, you know, start like I do with my clients, use questions more instead of just saying things.
Saying things in terms of what happened in your past.
Yeah,
then
then
just
I'm
sharing those
enthusiastic. It comes something up, and like, oh, I want to try this with you, you know. But yeah, so perhaps that's the reason why they don't like it, because like they remind me of this beautiful thing, and I want to share that with them, you know, like that's the intention. But perhaps that doesn't come across like that. So, perhaps
Yeah. Oh. Anyone else? Eva? I put you on the spot.
You totally did. I think this conversation confirmed for me that it is important. I feel it is important. Yes, with permission. I think the idea of permission has come up repeatedly, maybe not with that word, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
But that it's like, yeah, a definite yes for me after just listening to the exchanges and being part of the exchange. Yeah.
Nice.
So for me, it's definitely something that brought me to a point being maybe being a bit more curious and asking more questions, but not in a pushy way or trying to force something in order to get informations to feed my ego. More in terms of the point that you mentioned, is this potentially or does that meet a core value of myself? Is this something that fits in? Because I mean, I can truly say that the relationship that I have is the relationship that I would love to have until the end. So I'm not looking for anything casual. It's not that I'm like, oh, who's next, kind of. So in order to be able to have that container and build that frame, there are a couple of things that the person needs to bring into the relationship or not. And if there's something that is a no for me, I can definitely say, okay, that doesn't meet a value of me. Even when we connect, even when I love you as a person, even when you're beautiful, it's just something that in the long term would cause too much resistance, so that I couldn't be happy with it somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, what's my takeaway? I think what's really coming through for me is like that communication really breeds safety, and that this safety should be the intention of all of our communication. So maybe whether I'm a soft no or a soft yes, like this is my intention on either side, is to just bring an intention of safety into communication and allow things to be shared in a way that feels loving and safe and in the right timing for both people, so that intimacy can grow. Yeah, that's my takeaway.
Definitely the communication. I feel like this is a confirmation of how important it is. So I want to thank you as well, Satya, for holding this space like that. Communication between, men and women. How important that is in any kind of type of where we are. And I'm still curious. I feel like we mostly tapped into why men would ask the question, and I feel we haven't tapped into why women would ask these questions about men. So I definitely am still playing with that idea. Would I ask it myself if he's not revealing? I feel like so far every time it just unfolded on its own. So in that part, I'm just still curious, and I feel like I haven't heard from the woman as much. Yeah, but definitely something to think of. Thank you.
To be continued after the podcast. My takeaway, and I want to speak from my own personal as well as the man type perspective. I find it confirms even more how important it is as a man to be insanely sensitive to knowing when and how to communicate certain things or ask certain questions.
Yeah.
That women, generally speaking, really appreciate and desire a very open, raw, honest way of communicating with each other, even in these uncomfortable situations. So the more we can actually foster and create that frame of safety and security to have them, the more we can actually create that connection between the two of us and really allow everything to be discussed. And it doesn't need to go into judgment or okay, you cannot be this, and I don't want, So we're kind of moving away from that. If we as men are able and capable to create that container of trust and safety.
Okay.
And we're done.
All right.